Welcome to The Growth Equation. This isn't your typical business podcast. We're keeping it real about the challenges of scaling up, period. I'm Tristan Wright, and I've been there. I've built and scaled my own business. I've sold it. I've learned a ton along the way. Now I'm bringing you the no BS stories of founders who are in the trenches right now, navigating that messy middle. We're talking advertising, marketing, design, creative, branding, the whole 9 yards. Doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or running a team of 100. Everyone's got a secret sauce, that thing that makes them different, better. We're going to uncover it. So grab a coffee and let's get real. Today we're talking with Chanelle from Ninky Content Marketing. Chanelle, welcome.
Thank you, Tristan. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I've been looking forward to this chat. We cancelled it last week because I had the flu, so we're here a week later.
Yes. And I was just saying to Tristan before that I kind of like getting sick because as business owners, we very seldom take rest and chill out unless we are very sick. So at least you got some time to relax.
It's nice to have time to relax. I don't want to have to get sick to be able to take time off. So we need to, as business owners, we need to work out how we can value our time enough so that we don't have to be sick to have time off.
Yeah, absolutely. I've started blocking out time in my calendar and I literally label it rest so that I'm forced to take rest and nobody books anything in with me at that time. It was a tip that one of my friends gave me and it was one of the best things that I've done to just have some time for myself.
Nice. So tell me a bit about your journey. When did you set up Ninky? Is that your first venture or?
Yes, it is. Going back before Ninky, I have been in the marketing industry since 2009. I got my first job at a company in Cape Town, South Africa, which is my homeland. When I was 19 years old, I worked there. I got promoted to a position in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where they transferred me to work for a year. I then ended up in London and I worked for a big programmatic advertising company there. And then eventually I found myself in Australia in 2000 and whatever it was. I worked for News Corp when I moved to Australia. And then after about 2 years working for News Corp, I decided that I wanted to have more freedom and flexibility to do the things I'd always wanted to do, which was to travel and to act. And I thought, I know enough that I could probably just freelance and start my own business. And I did. So I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit in me. My mom was a business owner. She had a dance studio for 35 years and she was an aerobics instructor. And then my dad was also very entrepreneurial and had his own business. He owned a shoe factory in South Africa. So I definitely think I had that entrepreneurial spirit in me. And yeah, set up Ninky in 2018 and it's been going ever since. So we celebrated our 8th birthday this year. And when I say celebrated, I mean, we actually did nothing because we were so busy, but we turned 8 this year.
LinkedIn told you it was your 8th.
Every year it reminds me. So yeah, that's sort of the very short version of my business journey.
That's awesome. So your dad ran a shoe factory. So that I know we're going off on a tangent here, but that's cool. So what sort of shoes was it that he made? Or how did he get into
it actually wasn't whole shoes, it was soles. So they would do the soles of the shoes. So my cousin would make the shoe and then my dad was responsible for the soles. My dad had so many businesses over the years. He had a biscuit factory. He did screen printing for t-shirts. He had like a curio business with like African curios that he would export to other countries. He's passed away now, but I'm pretty sure that if he'd got tested for ADHD, he would have had it because he was just always looking at different things to do. But yeah, so that was one of the many things he did.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and we often learn from our parents. Our younger years, let's say between 5 and 10 or 7 and 14, most is when we get most influenced, and what we learn in that period forms our personality as we grow up and become older.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, they worked so incredibly hard and I was very aware of that and witnessed the ups and downs that we experience, because in business, it's not always cash flow going up, it's up and down. And so I witnessed that with my parents, all of those ups and downs. But throughout all of those ups and downs, they always showed up. They always did the work. They always delivered. And so I think that work ethic has been instilled in me from a very young age.
Yeah, and you would have learned from that, and that would have been one of your main reasons or main drivers for setting up your own business, because you want to be responsible for your destiny.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So now, South African, something that I'm really interested in at the moment is where the outsourced economy is going. A lot of Australians traditionally have used the Philippines and a bit of India for knowledge-based staff, so graphic designers, legal aids, whatever.
Mm.
But there seems to be a bit of a brain drain happening there at the moment, and the cost of labour is going up for someone that's really good. And I've started to see South Africa work a lot better for outsourced labour for Australia. It's only just in the early days, but from our previous conversation, you said you've got a couple of staff in South Africa.
Yeah. So outsourcing to South Africa has been around for a lot longer than I think what people realize.
Give it
The
credit for,
reason
yeah.
that I know that is because I was on the receiving end of that work. So when I worked for a company called Acceleration, which is now owned by WPP, my clients were The Economist, BBC, ESPN, Disney, and Victoria's Secret. So they gave Acceleration the work that they needed done, these really, really big brands. And that was all the way in 2009. So I think that big companies have discovered that you can outsource to South Africa and get first world talent at third world prices. But yet, I don't think everybody's adopted that shift just yet. You're quite right. Most people's default is to go to India and the Philippines, which is fine. But I too am seeing a lot more people shift into outsourcing work to South Africa. And I cannot recommend South Africans enough, because generally we have an exceptional work ethic. I think that has a lot to do with the culture and the history of the country. So because unfortunately we are so exposed to poverty in the country, you grow up seeing what your life will look like if you don't work hard or if you have nothing. So you're very grateful for what you have and you work fucking hard to keep it.
Yeah.
So I think that the political and societal climate of South Africa makes a workforce that has this exceptional work ethic, and we work very, very hard. And this is a massive generalization, and I hope no Australian takes offense, but it was one of the first things I noticed when I moved here. It's like, and I was like, good on you guys for setting boundaries, but they would be like the last in and the first out as soon as it turned to 5, whereas South Africans are so used to just grafting as hard as we can. So it was really only when I moved here that I learned the boundaries also of not working too hard.
We do take a lot of things for granted. Yes, it's a generalization, but yeah, a lot of Aussies have grown up with life being pretty easy. So
Yeah.
the fair main percentage of the population, 20s, 40s, have grown up with life being pretty easy. Haven't had to work hard in comparison.
Yeah, I agree. And look, it's not a bad thing, and I would hate for anyone to take offense to that comment, but it was one of the things, like I said, I noticed. I was like, oh, have you experienced any hardship? So yeah, I'm very grateful.
Not really.
Yeah. So definitely outsourcing to South Africa. There's quite a lot of agencies that you can connect with that will help recruit South African talent. I had a meeting with another one not so long ago that I unfortunately can't remember the name of. But yes, if you're thinking of outsourcing, think of South Africans. We're excellent.
Well, I remember, so this was going back 5-6 years ago, and I was looking at putting in appointment setters or BDMs into a business, and there was an option of Filipinos, South Africans, or Australians, and South Africa was a tiny bit more expensive than Philippines, but significantly cheaper than than Australia, and the
Yeah.
close rates were very similar, Australia to South Africa. So
Yeah.
the accents aren't too dissimilar.
Yeah, yeah. And, culturally there's some similarities as well. Yeah. And again, with that work ethic and that enthusiasm, I can imagine South Africans would also be quite
Yeah.
good salespeople.
I think the easy, like, yes, the big issue is the time zone, because right now
Mm.
we're recording at almost midday. So I think right now it's 5 a.m. in the most of South Africa. So it's 7 hours behind.
Yeah, yeah. Most of them, they work early hours. So I remember
Mm.
when I was working for Acceleration and I was managing the Economist account, I wasn't the APAC lead, but every now and then if she would go on leave or if she was sick, I would do the APAC shift, which was from 3 o'clock in the morning until 12 o'clock during the day. So a lot of them do work those sorts of hours. They kind of sleep during the day and work at night. So it is possible to find somebody who can work your hours. But yeah, I must say, even with having my team member in South Africa, and now that I've got somebody here in Australia as well, it is just nice to know when you are all online at the same time.
Mm-mm. So tell me a bit about your journey with Ninky. So 2017, 2018 through to today.
Yeah. So God, there's so much. There's so goddamn much. But I suppose what I like to say with the evolution of Ninky is that when I started the business, it actually, I was just doing copywriting and digital marketing consulting. So while I've had a vision of an agency, my goal at the time was to work and travel. And I happened to be a very good writer and I happened to have a lot of marketing experience. So I jumped onto platforms like Fiverr and Upwork, and I got pretty much all of my work through Fiverr and Upwork at a disgustingly cheap rate. Disgustingly
Like
cheap.
$10 an hour. And
Well, so bad. Like, I'll manage your whole social media for $150 or I'll write a blog for $25, like really cheap. And even though I had a lot of experience, I still entered the market out of dropping my pricing down. And it's a question that a lot of my coaching clients ask me when they're starting out a business is, do you start with a lower price to get your foot in the door and then build up your pricing from there? Or do you value yourself and your experience and what you can bring at the price it should be and enter the market that way? And then you're not having to fight to push everybody's rates up to what they should be as time goes on. And I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer for that. I think it's whatever's right for you and whatever you feel most comfortable with. I personally didn't feel comfortable entering the market at the same rate as established businesses that had put in all that groundwork to build that trust. So for me, it made sense to start with my rates being very low and work them up. And I still have days where I don't do as well as I should do with quoting what I should be quoting. And I think that's mostly a female thing, to be honest. I've coached both men and women, and it's more so women that struggle with setting their prices and being okay charging their worth,
interesting.
which is a whole conversation in itself. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, the business, it grew very organically. And my recommendation to anybody thinking of starting a business is, firstly, make sure that you do your research and that you validate that the idea that you have is needed. Because I know I also do a lot of coaching with people where I'll say, okay, so what kind of market research have you done? And they'll go, oh, no, I haven't done any of that. I just know it's a really good idea. And I'm like,
So let's just clarify. So for our listeners, you've got two sides of your business. You've got the
mm.
agency side and the marketing coaching side.
Yeah. So there's the managed services side, which is Ninky, where we do content marketing. Social media is a big part of that, and we do marketing strategy. And then there's myself, Chanelle Roux Consulting, where I'm a consultant and marketing coach. So that's mostly where I spend my time. My team does a lot of the managed services tasks, and I do a lot of the coaching side of things. So yeah, I think, make sure that you've got an idea for a business that is actually a need or that's solving a problem. But then don't try and pigeonhole it into what you think the business should be. Allow it to evolve organically. Because what happened with me is I entered the market doing copywriting and marketing consulting, but as time went on, the business evolved and grew and new services started to come to life based on where I saw there was the demand or an opportunity. So now, as of 2025, we don't really do copywriting services anymore because of AI. I unfortunately had to make my copywriter redundant because we just weren't getting that work anymore. And now we do more marketing strategy and social media management, influencer management, user-generated content, and then a lot of coaching and consulting. I do a lot more coaching and consulting now than I was before. So going back to your question, how has Ninki evolved over the years? That's probably the evolution story in terms of, lessons and challenges over those 8 years. There's so many of them, but, I think that's probably the summary of the evolution story.
How many times have you wanted to throw the towel in, and like it's just been, the hours have been too long,
Yeah.
clients have been too annoying?
Yeah. No, a lot. I tried to sell the business a year or two ago. I just reached a point where I was just over it. I was so burnt out. I used to work when we started out. Our biggest client was actually in the States, so I was working crazy hours. I was sort of working almost like 24 hours, like nighttime to service my US clients, and then during the day to service my Aussie clients. And I was so burnt out, and my nervous system was so fucked. And the only way that I could temporarily calm it was to drink. So I was drinking a lot, and then I'll wake up and I would work with a hangover, and then it was just this vicious cycle. And it's something I'm very candid and open about, because I think a lot of business owners do it, but they don't often actually share that it's what they're struggling with. There's a podcast interview of me on by a company called Motion by Design, where I'm talking about TikTok, and you can see I've got like booze bloat of note. And it's really common, business owners, they burn themselves out. Alcohol is one of the things that they use to relax and unwind at the end of a very stressful day. So yes, there have been times where I've wanted to throw the towel in. And like I said, 2 years ago, I thought about selling the business. I went through all of the process of getting an exit strategist and getting all of my numbers together. And I had some interest from a few other agencies. In the end, for reasons that I won't get into, I didn't end up selling, but I'm very glad that I didn't, because this year has been the best year that I have had in business.
Awesome.
Because I got so close to giving away my baby. I don't have children, so the business is the closest thing I have to a baby that I've nurtured from the time it was born to now. And I got so close to giving it away. And I wanted to give it away because it was killing me. It was burning me out. I call my business my beautiful monster, because I love it and the life it's given me, but it's also an absolute beast. And so the fact that it got so bad that I actually wanted to give up my baby, I had to stop and look inward and going, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I burning myself out like this? I've got myself to a point where I'm resenting my business. I'm resenting my clients. I'm getting irritable with everybody. This is not sustainable. And so it forced me to make really big changes that have ultimately benefited my business. I downsized my business. I'm much more leaner than I was before.
How big was it before?
We had 4 employees all up. We had an office. Thankfully, aside from having to make one team member redundant, the rest of my employees spread their wings and flew the coop, which is something I'm always very proud of. They were all very inexperienced students when they came to me. And by the time Morgan now works in Sydney, Alex now works in London, and they all organically left Ninki all on good terms. And that allowed me to go, okay, this is great. I'm going to make this decision to get rid of the office, go back to a contractor model, and just reset the way that I run my business, because the way that I've run it for the last 7 years is not sustainable, and it's creating some very unsavory habits for me. So this year has been the best year from a mental health point of view, but it's also been the best year from a profit point of view. So less revenue overall, but far more profit. Yeah, exactly. Like just more profit because I'm running a lean business. Having said that, it's not all sparkles and rainbows. I think there's a whole conversation to be had around, working with contractors versus having your employees, because there's pros and cons of each, and I've experienced both sides. But yeah,
Yeah, what?
Overall,
Tell me about that, because contractors is good because it's less risk in a way, but it's also high risk because they're not as engaged or enrolled in your dream.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the, I think, there's pros and cons to each, and with contractors, it's, it's generally cheaper, but it doesn't feel as stable as an employee. So I think that there's lots of pros and cons of each side. But for me, the biggest con with contractors is that stability.
Mm.
I loved having my own employees because I could mold them into the employees that I wanted. You obviously create culture in your company with your employees. You can do things like set KPIs, which you can't do with a contractor. So if your contractor's mucking about and not doing what they're supposed to, you can't smack them over the wrists. You're not their boss, you're their client. Whereas with an employee, you have a little bit more control over them. And I don't mean that in a crazy way, but you can set goals, career goals for them that keeps them committed to delivering what they need to deliver for the business, because it's helpful for the business and for their career. You can monitor them, monitor their performance, set KPIs to make sure they're doing what they're doing. And you can create a space where you can have a healthy conversation when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, whereas that's very difficult to do with a contractor. So I think there's pros and cons to each. And I've had a lot of awful experiences working with contractors, and I'm a very reasonable person, and I always set up my contractors for success. I brief them well, I treat them well, I make them feel like they're a part of the business. I invite them to our Christmas parties, all of that kind of thing. But I can't teach that diligence and commitment and work ethic and responsibility and reliability. Whereas when I have my employees, I hire them based on those soft skills. So yeah, lots of pros and cons, but I think control and stability is far easier to get from employees than it is from contractors.
Totally. The way you structure your offer for your clients, does it have to change based off if you've got employees or contractors?
No, I've never changed my services or offerings based on the people that I have in the business. I suppose the only thing is that if I decide to offer a new service that I don't have the in-house skills for, then I would hire somebody to take that on. Like, we don't have an in-house graphic designer, for example, but if suddenly graphic design was a core service that we wanted to offer, then I would need to look at hiring specifically for that role. It's never really, with all the stuff behind the scenes with people fulfilling the work for our clients are they very seldom feel that impact.
Yeah. 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 Where do you see the industry going, especially with AI? You talked about copywriting before. Where do you see the industry going and changes you may need to make?
Yeah, I mean, I've already had to make quite a significant change, which got a lot of press in publications like Mumbrella, for example, because I, I I I was on the receiving end of that change. AI came about. There was a significant drop in our inquiries for copywriting services, and I had to make my copywriter redundant. And even since then, there's been even more and more impact and more changes. And it kind of shits me when people say, "Oh, but it's the same as the Industrial Revolution." It's not, because it's happening at a much faster scale, at a much faster pace than what the Industrial Revolution would have happened. So, the scale of magnitude is much more intense. I'm definitely worried about the future of everybody's jobs, not just jobs in marketing. Not to get all deep, but it's one of the biggest reasons why my husband and I don't have children, because we don't know what the hell they would do for a job. So yes, I'm worried about it. My husband's a copywriter and he's worried about it too. The thing that I'm not worried about is the consulting coaching side, seeing the results that I've been able to help businesses get. I can't see AI replacing that,
No.
particularly because, that vulnerability and that human connection that happens when you're coaching somebody through their business growth and their business challenges. There's no ways that AI would be able to empathize and give that level of human love and support that I do in those coaching sessions. And I mean, I've had people cry because they're happy with the results or cry because they're going through so much. I can't imagine a robot being able to console a business owner in their darkest times the way that I have to do as a coach and consultant sometimes. So I'm not too worried about that. Also, when you go into tools like Canva, which I love Canva, but when you look at some of the AI stuff that it does, it's still pretty shit. So, I think that there is still a long way to go for it to be able to do anything as good as a human. And I follow this guy, I can't remember his name, but he's hilarious. He's a director and he gets AI actors to act out scenes, and they're also absolute shithouse. So, yes, I'm worried about it. Yes, AI is amazing. It's not perfect. I think we have to embrace it, obviously, and educate ourselves, but also decide as a business how we're going to use it ethically. We're transparent about how we do and don't use AI in the business so that our clients know. And I reduced the price of some of our services because we were saving time by AI, which I think was an ethical choice by me. So yeah, it's already changed the industry and it's going to continue to change the industry. All we can do is remind ourselves of the unique things that we bring as humans and try and leverage that as much as possible wherever we can.
Totally. So if you were to give other business owners in your situation one piece of advice to help them in their journey moving forward, what's that one piece of advice you would give?
I have so much advice to give, but the one that always comes to mind first is that perfection hinders progress.
Yes.
I'm not a perfectionist. I think I used to be, but I learned to let that go because A, it would make me so anxious trying to get something perfect. And B, when I started my own business, I realized that perfectionism was hindering progress. And so, people often wait for everything to be perfect, but by the time it is perfect, which it probably never will be, you've missed all of this opportunity. So just do it. Just jump in and do it. And it doesn't matter if it's perfect. Fix it, perfect it later. Do the thing now. Yeah, done's better than perfect. I mean, I think the only industry that's not relevant for is like a plastic surgeon. That's probably not ideal. But for what we do, I did a story about this the other day. For people who painstakingly obsess over their social media posts, for fuck's sake, someone's going to look at it for about 5 seconds and move on with their life. And, the other thing is with showing up on places like social media. I coach a lot of people who are terrified at showing their face on social media, or they're so terrified about what people are going to think about them. And I want to say, my darling, you are so wonderful and you've got so much value to give and you are fantastic, but I promise you, people are far too busy to give you more than a second's thought. And that doesn't mean, I don't mean that in a bad way, but no one's looking at your LinkedIn post and then obsessing over it over the weekend thinking, oh my God, I can't believe she said that. What an idiot. People move on.
Yep.
So just show up, do the thing, forget perfectionism, get it done. Just think about all the opportunities you're missing while you're waiting for that perfection to come.
That's it. Get it out there, learn from your mistakes and improve and move on.
Yeah. And it's so much fun when you do. Like when you get in that zone where you're just getting it out, the flow of business moves so much more beautifully. Not a word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Chanelle, it's been awesome chatting today. What's the best way for people to get in touch if they want to connect?
So many ways. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn for sure. You can follow us on Instagram. Our handle is @Ninky Content Marketing. You can also follow my coaching/consulting business, which is @Chanelle the Roux Marketing Coach. Chanelle the Roux is ChanelleLelleRoux. And you can go and check out our website, which is ninkycontentmarketing.com. We also have the Ninky Academy, which is our on-demand educational side of the business, which is just ninkyacademy.com, I'm pretty sure. So lots of different ways you can check out our work and you can connect with me. And I'm always happy to have a chat to anybody who wants to talk business.
Awesome.
As long as you don't mind my potty mouth, as I'm sure you need.
I'm going to have to beep everything out. All good. Have a great day. Thanks, Chanelle.
Thank you so much, Tristan. Have a lovely weekend.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into The Growth Equation. If you've enjoyed the show, hit that subscribe button and leave a review. It helps us big time. Catch you next time. And if you want more, head over to evolvetogrow.com.au for show notes and exclusive content.